Welcome to Revisit Books podcast, where we turn books into bite-sized wisdom you can use every day. We're cracking open a true classic today, a book that, well, it really changed the game on how America thinks about getting wealthy. It's The Millionaire Next Door, The Surprising Secrets of America's Wealthy by Thomas Stanley and William Danko.
It really did. And this isn't just some armchair theorizing either.
No, not at all. This book is built on decades of really meticulous research. They surveyed over 11,000 high net worth people.
And hundreds of in-depth, face-to-face interviews on top of that. It's incredibly thorough.
So they really got under the hood to see what wealth actually looks like in America.
Exactly. And the big surprise right off the bat is that the image most of us have in our heads, you know, the fancy cars, the mansions, the high-status stuff, it's mostly wrong. It's almost entirely misleading when you look at the majority of millionaires.
It's fascinating because the researchers, they actually spent years trying to find these wealthy people in, you know, the fancy zip codes.
Right, where you'd expect them to be.
Exactly. Only to realize the real wealth building, the serious accumulation, was happening kind of under the radar.
Which leads to the core idea of the whole book. It's refreshingly simple, almost stark.
Which is?
Wealth isn't about your paycheck. It's not what you earn, and it's definitely not what you spend. It's what you keep, what you accumulate over time.
So making a huge salary but spending it all, that doesn't make you wealthy.
Nope. The book calls that living high. You might look rich, but you're financially fragile. You're not actually building wealth.
That distinction is crucial.
Yeah.
And the data they gathered about this low-profile reality is, well, it's pretty staggering.
It really is. Think about this. Over 80% of the millionaires they studied were first-generation rich.
80%. So they built it themselves.
Entirely. From the ground up. They didn't inherit it. That whole idea of the trust fund kid being the typical millionaire, it's just not borne out by the data.
So what about inheritances or trust funds then?
Get this. Only 19% received any income or principal from a trust fund or an estate. 19.
Wow. Okay, so the vast majority are truly self-made.
Absolutely. And visually, you wouldn't pick them out of a crowd.
Right. They don't necessarily look rich.
Not at all. The authors found that about half of America's millionaires don't even live in those typically defined upscale neighborhoods.
Half. That's amazing.
It is. They make a conscious choice to live in places that are affordable, where they aren't bleeding money on, you know, massive property taxes or keeping up appearances. They avoid neighborhoods where just the house itself demands 15 or 20% of their income.
That makes sense. So if you had to paint a picture of the typical millionaire based on this research.
Okay, the prototype, statistically speaking, is a 57-year-old married man, usually with about 3 kids.
Okay, sounds pretty normal so far.
Right. But the real kicker, the surprise, is what he does for a living.
Yeah, because we're always told, you know, you got to be a doctor, a lawyer, and an investment banker. These high-status, high-income jobs.
That's the conventional wisdom. But the research, it paints a very different picture about where these millionaires actually spend their working lives.
Okay, tell me more.
Around 2/3. Think about that. 2/3 of working millionaires are self-employed. Entrepreneurs.
2/3. But self-employed people are a much smaller slice of the workforce overall.
Way smaller. Less than 20% of the American workforce is self-employed. Yet they make up 2/3 of the millionaires. That disproportion is huge.
Why is that? What's the advantage?
It boils down to ownership and control. Control over the profits, control over the costs. They're not just earning a salary, they're building equity in a business.
And what kind of businesses are we talking about? Is it cutting-edge tech?
Rarely, actually. This is where that great term dull normal comes in, which I also love.
Dull normal?
Okay.
Like what?
Think essential, often unglamorous services, stuff people need consistently. We're talking welding contractors.
Welding,
Yeah.
okay.
Auctioneers, they get a percentage regardless of how the economy's doing. Rice farmers. Mobile home park owners, providing stable, affordable housing. Pest controllers. Paving contractors.
Hold on. Paving contractors. How does paving roads make you a multimillionaire? I think a lot of people listening might be scratching their heads at that one.
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, right? But it's not about the glamour of the industry. It's about the profitability for the owner.
Yep.
These dull, normal businesses often operate outside that high-status, high-consumption world. Your paving contractor doesn't need a $1,000 suit or a flashy car to impress clients.
Right. His clients just care if the pavement is smooth and done on time.
Exactly. So he keeps his overhead incredibly low, his profits are potentially quite high, and crucially, he keeps those profits in the business or invests them letting that equity grow, often tax-deferred.
Ah, so the wealth isn't tied up in a big salary that gets taxed heavily. It's in the value of the business itself.
That's a huge part of it. And it extends to where they hold their other assets, too. It's often not where people assume.
Meaning not all in the stock market or their house.
Correct. That's another common myth. The typical PAW, we'll get to that term in a second, it means prodigious accumulator of wealth. They don't usually have everything riding on volatile public stocks.
So what percentage are we talking?
Historically, it's been less than 30% of their net worth in publicly traded stocks. Often it's more like the low to mid-20s.
Really? So where's the rest?
The vast majority is typically tied up in their own private businesses, the ones they control, or in investment real estate, assets where they have direct influence. They prefer control over leaving it purely to the whims of the public market. That preference for control is key to their whole strategy.
Okay, this whole overview just completely flips the script on who millionaires are. It makes you wonder, who around me is actually wealthy?
Exactly. And importantly, it makes you ask, am I on the right track?
Which brings us to the next point. How do we figure that out? How can you, listening right now, know if you're on that path to becoming a prodigious accumulator of wealth or the opposite?
Right. The book gives us the tools. This is where they introduce that critical distinction, the foundation of their analysis, really. The difference between the prodigious accumulator of wealth, or PAW, and the under-accumulator of wealth, the UAW.
PAW versus UAW. Okay. And it's not just about how much money you have right now.
No, it's deeper than that. It's about your efficiency. How good are you at turning your time and your income into actual lasting net worth?
So it's like a measure of financial fitness compared to what's expected for your situation.
Precisely. PAWs are the ones whose net worth is way above what you'd expect for their age and income. They're great savers, great investors. UAWs, on the other hand, often have high incomes, but their net worth is way below the benchmark. They're the high consumers.
And there's a way to calculate this expected level, a rule of thumb.
Yep, a very simple but really insightful formula. You listening can do this right now. Take your current age.
Right.
Multiply that by your realized pre-tax annual household income. So everything you actually earn before taxes, but don't count inheritances.
Got it. Age times income.
Then divide that number by 10. That result, that's your expected net worth.
Okay, let's try an example. Say I'm 40 and my household income is $100,000.
All right, 40 times 100,000 is $4 million.
Divide by 10. That's $400,000.
Mm.
So $400K is my expected net worth.
Exactly. Now, you compare your actual net worth to that number. If your net worth is, say, $800,000, double the expectation, you're solidly in PAW territory.
But if my net worth is only like $150,000?
Then you'd be classified as a UAW. You're under-accumulating relative to your income potential.
That's a really useful benchmark. It levels the playing field, right? Because a 25-year-old making $100 obviously can't have the same net worth as a 60-year-old making the same amount.
Exactly. It accounts for age and time. It measures financial efficiency over your earning lifetime.
And the case studies they use to show the difference between PAWs and UAWs,
Yeah.
they're incredibly eye-opening. Those are the real aha moments.
Oh, definitely. Let's talk about Dr. John J. Ashton. On paper, this guy looks like the epitome of success. He's 56 years old, pulling in a massive $560,000 a year.
Okay, so using the formula, 56 times 560,000 divided by 10. His expected net worth should be, wow, over $3 million.
Should be. But his actual net worth, just $1.1 million.
Ouch. So he's a classic UAW despite the huge income. Why? What's going wrong?
It's the lifestyle. He prioritized looking rich over actually being financially secure. That huge income basically became a license to spend, spend, spend.
On what kind of things?
Multiple luxury car leases, expensive private school tuition for the kids, country club memberships, a massive house that came with huge debt and constant upkeep costs. All the typical high-status traps.
So he looks wealthy, but he's vulnerable.
Extremely. The researchers figured that with his high-consumption, high-overhead lifestyle, if his income suddenly stopped, he could only sustain himself for maybe 2 or 3 years max.
That's terrifying. He'd face immediate financial pressure, have to sell things off.
Panic mode. Complete panic mode. Now, contrast him with Charles Bobbins.
Okay, who's Charles Bobbins?
Charles is 41. He's a fireman. His wife is a secretary. Their combined income is pretty modest, $55,000 a year.
$55,000. Okay, so his expected net worth, 41 times 55,000 divided by 10 is about $225,500.
Right, that's the expectation. But his actual net worth is much higher than that, significantly higher.
Ah, so he's a PAW. on a regular income.
Exactly. He figured out how to save and invest a substantial chunk of an income that most people would say isn't enough to build real wealth. He and his wife live a deliberately low consumption life. That income doesn't just flow out. Most of it gets converted into assets.
The Bobbins family really proves it's possible without a massive salary, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Their wealth isn't measured in fancy watches or cars, it's measured in genuine financial independence. While Dr. Ashton is constantly working just to pay for yesterday's consumption.
Mr. Bobbins could probably support his family for years without working if he had to.
For a decade, potentially. That's the difference. That's real security.
Which is exactly why this book is so important for you listening right now. It doesn't matter if you make $55,000 or $560,000.
Right. If you're earning a good income but feel like Dr. Ashton's stuck on that treadmill where the money comes in and goes right back out again.
You see it, but it doesn't stick. You're worried about the future, even with a good job.
Then you are precisely who this book is for. You're experiencing that gap between income and actual wealth accumulation.
And that failure to accumulate, even with good income, leads us directly into the first major takeaway from the research. What's the #1 trait these millionaires next door share?
Okay, key takeaway #1 is this. Frugality and independence trump status display. Every single time.
That's the absolute bedrock of being a pa.
It truly is. They live well below their means, not just for a year or two, but consistently as a way of life. They've made a conscious decision. Financial independence, the ability to walk away from work if they needed or wanted to, is far more important than showing off symbols of success.
But isn't that kind of un-American? The whole dream is often portrayed as earning more so you can spend more, right? Upgrade the car, bigger house, people feel they've earned it.
And that's the trap, the consumption trap. The truly wealthy people, the PAWs, they aren't the ones driving those trends. In fact, they actively resist them.
How so? The book gives examples.
Right? Oh, fantastic ones. Let's talk suits.
Okay, suits.
The median amount, meaning half spent more, half spent less, that millionaires paid for their most expensive suit ever was $399 or less.
$399 for their most expensive suit. That's not what you'd expect.
Not at all. And here's the kicker. For every one millionaire who actually owns a $1,000 suit, the researchers found there are at least 6 non-millionaires buying them.
Who are these non-millionaires buying expensive suits?
Think corporate middle managers, lawyers maybe just starting out or not earning that much yet, even medical residents. People with lower incomes and much lower net worth are buying the high-status uniform.
Trying to signal success they haven't actually achieved financially.
Exactly. It's aspirational spending that hinders actual accumulation. And the watch metric is even more telling.
The watches? What about them?
The majority of millionaires surveyed had never paid more than $235 for a wristwatch. Ever.
$235. So we're talking functional, basic timepieces, not Rolexes.
Definitely not. They feature one multimillionaire, Miss T, who famously wore a Timex. She didn't need a luxury brand on her wrist to feel successful. Her validation came from her balance sheet, not her accessories.
It's not just about saving a few $100 on a watch or suit, though, is it? It's about avoiding the whole lifestyle inflation cycle.
Precisely. It's about minimizing your financial overhead. When you constantly upgrade the bigger house in the fancier neighborhood, the luxury car leases, the private school tuition, the club memberships, you build up these huge fixed costs.
Costs that then demand you keep earning that high income just to tread water.
Right. You become a slave to maintaining the facade. Which brings us to Johnny Lucas.
Ah, yes, the janitorial contractor.
Perfect example. Net worth over $2 million. But his neighbors, they described him as nondescript, middle class. He blended right in.
How did his business choice help him avoid the trap?
Think about it. If you're a high-flying attorney, there's pressure to dress the part, have the fancy office, drive the right car to justify high fees. Johnny Lucas. His clients are building managers. His employees are janitors. He doesn't need to impress them with flash.
In fact, looking too flashy might actually hurt his relationship with his employees.
Could well do. By avoiding that status game, he keeps his business overhead low, his personal spending low, and plows the profits back into the business or investments. It compounds year after year without being drained away by status maintenance. He doesn't need external applause.
That makes perfect sense for the paw. But what drives the UAW? Like Teddy Friend, high income, $221K a year, but low net worth. Why does he spend so much?
Teddy Friend is a fascinating case study in insecurity. He came from a very humble background, didn't go to college, and felt he needed to compensate.
Compensate how?
By displaying status. He owned 2 boats, a jet ski, 6 cars, all the outward symbols. His net worth was tiny because almost every dollar that came in went right back out to fund these possessions.
So he was, as the book says, possessed by possessions.
Totally. And it becomes a weird motivational cycle. He admitted he needed the pressure of that debt, the need to fund his lifestyle, to keep himself working hard. It was fear-driven motivation.
Wow. So he equated being better off purely with having more stuff to show, not with having actual financial security.
Never with the quiet confidence of a growing investment portfolio. His parents apparently taught him that money was only for spending, not for planting and growing. A classic UAW mindset passed down.
That lack of planting, that lack of financial discipline, it leads perfectly into the second key takeaway.
Right. Key takeaway number 2. Financial discipline is the great defense.
If generating income is the offense.
Then frugality, budgeting, planning, that's the defense. And you can have a killer offense, make a ton of money, but if your defense is leaky, you won't win the wealth game. It'll all seep out through taxes and consumption.
And the family unit plays a huge role in this defense, doesn't it? The research found almost all PAW households, like 95%, were married couples.
Yes, and critically, for PAWs, the spouse is almost always on the same page financially. Often they're even more frugal, the real defense leader of the household.
Like Mrs. Rule.
Mrs. Jane Rule, exactly. Her husband ran a very successful auctioneering business, got most of the public recognition for their wealth. But behind the scenes, Mrs. Rule was the engine of their accumulation.
How so?
She managed the budgets, not just for the household, but for the business finances too. She was the one ensuring that the cash flow generated by the business actually turned into retained equity, into wealth, instead of just funding a higher lifestyle or unnecessary business expenses. She played, as they say, tremendous defense.
It still seems a bit weird that millionaires need to budget. You'd think once you reach that level, you can stop counting pennies.
That's the UAW thinking again. For the PAW, budgeting isn't just a tool to get rich. It's a habit to stay rich. It's about control and maintaining their status.
And the numbers back this up.
They do.
Yeah.
The study found that for every 100 millionaires who don't budget, there are about 120 who do. It's a core discipline.
And they track things that maybe high-income UAWs don't bother with.
Absolutely. Mrs. Rule knew, down to the dollar practically, how much their family spent annually on the basics: food, clothing, shelter. Over 62% of millionaires knew this number precisely.
Why is tracking that stuff so important, even if it's not tax deductible?
Because the act of tracking is the control mechanism. UAWs often dismiss household spending because it doesn't impact their business bottom line directly. They miss the point. Controlling that domestic consumption is how you free up capital to invest and reach financial independence goals. Ignoring it allows lifestyle creep to eat away at potential savings.
So the discipline isn't just about money, it extends to time and energy too. PAWs are planners.
Highly goal-oriented. They allocate their time just as carefully as their money. They are strategic about their financial future.
Is there data on how much time they spend planning?
Yeah, the difference is significant. PAWs spend, on average, about 100.8 hours per year. That's almost 2 hours a week, studying investments, planning their finances, meeting with advisors.
Okay, 100 hours a year. What about UAWs?
UAWs, only about 55.2 hours per year, roughly half the time.
Wow. So pausers actively visualizing the future payoff, like funding grandkids' college, which makes the sometimes tedious work of budgeting feel meaningful.
Exactly. They have long-term goals that justify the short-term discipline.
So if UAWs aren't spending time planning their finances, what are they spending their time on? They're often very busy people too.
They're spending that time consuming or planning consumption. The book shows this clear inverse relationship. The more time you spend shopping for luxury goods, the less time you spend planning your financial future.
And the prime example is car shopping.
Oh, yeah. The great depreciating asset purchase. Let's go back to Dr. South, the UAW surgeon. High income, but worried sick about his future.
Right. What did he spend his time on?
He spent over 60 hours researching and negotiating the purchase of a $65,000 Porsche.
60 hours of a surgeon's time on a car.
Think about the opportunity cost of that time alone. And in that same year, how much did he put into his pension plan? $5,700.
That's unbelievable. 60 hours on a depreciating car versus minimal effort on his retirement savings.
His priorities were crystal clear, even if he didn't realize it. His time, his energy, his focus overwhelmingly dedicated to consumption, not accumulation.
And the pause. How do they approach cars?
They are masters at avoiding that depreciation tax. They play defense.
Meaning they buy used.
Overwhelmingly. The most financially efficient group in the entire study, the ones with the highest net worth relative to their income, were the used vehicle shoppers.
How high was their ratio?
Get this. They had $17.20 of net worth for every $1 of realized annual income. That is phenomenal efficiency.
$17 of wealth for every dollar earned.
Yeah.
How does buying used achieve that?
Simple. They let the first owner absorb that massive depreciation, hit, the 30–40% value drop that happens almost immediately when a new car drives off the lot.
Right. They buy it after the worst of the depreciation is over.
Exactly. They often buy cars that are 2 or 3 years old, maybe pay cash, drive them for a few years, and then often sell them for not much less than they paid. They minimize the capital destruction. It's smart defense, often rooted in values they learned growing up.
Like planting seeds instead of eating them.
Precisely. That analogy comes up. Dollars are like seeds, meant to be planted and grown, not immediately consumed.
That mention of parental influence is a perfect segue into key takeaway number 3. This one can be a bit controversial. The danger of what the book calls economic outpatient care, or EOC.
Ah, yes, EOC. This is about how financial support from parents can either help or, more often according to the research, actually hinder their adult children's financial independence.
So giving your kids money isn't always helpful.
The data is surprisingly clear on this. Affluent parents whose adult kids are economically self-sufficient, they tend to have significantly more wealth themselves compared to parents who provide ongoing financial support.
Because the EOC itself is a drain, like paying for grandkids' private school.
That's part of it. EOC includes cash gifts, helping with mortgage payments, paying for tuition. You mentioned 43% of millionaires subsidize grandkids' private school. That's a huge ongoing outflow that directly reduces the parent's own ability to accumulate or maintain wealth.
So parents providing EOC have less wealth than their peers who don't.
Substantially less, on average. But the arguably bigger issue is the impact EOC has on the kids receiving it.
How does it hurt the kids? Let's look at Lamar and Mary from the book.
Right. Lamar and Mary earn less than $60,000 a year combined. But they live an upper-middle-class lifestyle that, realistically, requires an income at least twice that.
How do they manage that?
Purely through constant subsidies from their parents. Regular cash gifts, help with down payments, mortgage assistance, you name it.
So their UAWs being propped up externally.
Textbook UAWs. They spend more than they earn plus the gifts they receive. And crucially, they admit they don't budget. Why would they? There are no real consequences if they overspend. Mom and dad will just bail them out.
Okay, but shouldn't receiving gifts theoretically help you accumulate more wealth? You have extra cash you didn't earn.
Logically, you'd think so. But psychologically, it often works the opposite way. When the gifts are essentially treated as income supplements to fund a lifestyle.
It doesn't go into savings or investments.
Right. Worse, it dampens ambition. It creates dependency. The recipients start to feel financially well off because of the subsidies, which gives them psychological permission to spend even more. They never develop the discipline that comes from living within their own earned means.
And the result is they actually end up with less wealth.
Yes. That's one of the most striking findings. Gift-receiving attorneys, for example, were found to have only 62% of the wealth of attorneys in the same age and income group who didn't receive gifts.
62%. The gifts actually made them poorer in the long run, relatively speaking.
Because the gifts fueled consumption and became an entitlement, rather than being treated as capital to be invested. The parents, often with the best intentions, think they're providing a safety net.
But they're actually preventing their kids from developing financial courage.
Exactly that term the book uses. Courage, the mental toughness to face hardship, to take calculated risks, to delay gratification. That's essential for building wealth, especially if you're an entrepreneur. EOC shelters kids from the very experiences that build that courage.
Like the extreme case, Miss BPF. That wasn't just outpatient care, it was inpatient.
Oh, totally. Miss BPF was completely insulated from reality. Parents funded her business 100%, gave her a house rent-free, even reportedly cleaned her room for her as an adult. They wanted to shield her from any possibility of failure.
And the results.
An adult paralyzed by fear. Despite all the financial backing, her business accumulated debt. She bought a $45,000 car without comparison shopping. She paid thousands in country club dues she couldn't afford. When interviewed, she listed 12 major financial fears.
12. What do typical self-made entrepreneurs fear?
Usually just one main thing: government policy changes, or excessive taxation. Mrs. BPF feared everything because she'd never been allowed to experience and overcome even small setbacks. She had zero financial courage.
Contrast her with Cinderella Sarah.
Right. Sarah's wealthy father disapproved of her career path and cut her off completely when she left home. Zero EOC.
Sink or swim time.
Exactly. And Sarah swam. Forced to rely on herself, she developed discipline, the frugality, the courage. She eventually became a highly successful, self-made millionaire executive.
And her sister, the one who got the EOC.
Alice. She stayed close to Papa, took the subsidies, lived the life he approved of, but she never accumulated significant wealth. She spent through her inheritance and eventually needed financial help from Sarah, the one who was cut off.
Wow. So the book's message is clear. The best inheritance isn't cash.
No. It's a good education, and maybe more importantly, an upbringing that instills independence, discipline, and frugality. They talk about teaching kids financial hibernation, save early, live modestly, let time and compounding work their magic.
That's powerful stuff. Okay, let's shift gears slightly for key takeaway number 4. This is about career choices and, crucially, how PAWs structure their finances for both offense making money and defense keeping it, especially from taxes.
Right. We already established that being self-employed dramatically boosts your odds of becoming a millionaire. But again, it's less about the specific industry and more about the owner's discipline and the business's profitability.
The dull normal strikes again. Janitorial services, engine rebuilding.
Exactly. Often stable demand, decent margins, and crucially, low visibility. They don't require participation in the high-status consumption game.
But the real genius move for PAWs seems to be tax management, minimizing realized income.
Absolutely critical. PAWs understand this deeply. They structure things to minimize the income they actually have to declare and pay taxes on each year. They hate seeing their accumulating capital get shaved off by taxes.
How do they do that?
They reinvest profits back into their private businesses, which grows the equity tax deferred. Or they hold investments like stocks or real estate for the long term, avoiding capital gains taxes until they absolutely have to sell, if ever. They focus on building net worth, not just maximizing taxable income.
And the difference this makes compared to a high-income UAW is huge, isn't it?
It's night and day. Look at the numbers. The typical PAW's realized annual income, the amount they actually report and pay tax on, is only about 6.7% of their total net worth.
6.7%. So if they're worth, say, $3 million.
Their taxable income might only be around $200,000.
Yeah.
They're living relatively modestly off that realized income, while the other $2.8 million is sitting there compounding, largely untaxed for the moment.
Now compare that to a UAW, like Sharon, earning $220,000 but with a net worth of only $370,000.
Sharon's situation is the opposite. Her realized annual income, $220K, is almost 60% of her total net worth, $370K.
60%.
She has to realize almost all her gains, almost all her income, every single year just to pay her bills and fund her lifestyle. And that means a massive tax bill relative to her wealth. In her case, nearly $70,000 just in federal income tax.
When you're paying taxes equivalent to nearly 20% of your entire net worth every year, $70K tax on $370K net worth on top of spending the rest.
Yeah,
you can't accumulate.
It's impossible. The tax drag alone prevents significant long-term capital growth. PAWs understand this. UAWs often don't, or they feel powerless against it because their consumption demands so much realized income.
Understanding this wealth structure also sheds light on some of the market opportunities the book pointed out.
Yeah.
Who profits from servicing the wealthy?
Right. The people who cater to the needs of the affluent often become wealthy themselves. The book predicted huge opportunities back then, and they were largely right.
Like estate attorneys.
Definitely. With trillions expected to transfer between generations, settling those complex estates became big business. Also, financial advisors specializing in serving widows who often inherit substantial wealth but may need guidance managing it.
And interestingly, the bad habits of UAWs, especially those getting EOC, actually create business for others too.
That's a really sharp point they make. When parents provide EOC for, say, a down payment,
the kids become less price sensitive about the house they buy.
Exactly. They often buy a bigger, more expensive house than they could otherwise afford, taking out larger mortgages. Who benefits?
Home builders, real estate agents, mortgage lenders.
The whole ecosystem that profits from higher levels of consumption and debt, which the PAW consciously avoids, EOC fuels that machine.
We absolutely have to wrap this section with the story of Mr. W, the dull, normal business owner dealing with his high-status neighbors.
Oh, Mr. W, the gauge manufacturer. He's fantastic. A self-made millionaire, Classic Pa. He invests in distressed real estate, including sometimes luxury condos, and he has this almost amused perspective on the UAWs who buy his properties.
He sees them as trading happiness for status.
Pretty much. He sees them prioritizing image and restrictive rules over practicality, and he understands how to use that financially. The dog story is the perfect example.
Right, he bought units in a luxury complex in the association.
Dominated by status-conscious UAWs, naturally. They passed a new rule, a restrictive covenant, banning dogs over 15 pounds, clearly aimed directly at Mr. W's dog. They wanted to impose their vision of upscale living on him.
So how did Mr. W, the practical Pa, handle this?
Brilliantly. He was actually planning to sell the unit anyway, but before doing so, he floated a proposal to the association board.
Which was?
He suggested turning his condo over to his company's employee profit-sharing plan, meaning his blue-collar assembly line workers could use it as a free vacation spot 52 weeks a year.
Oh, the absolute horror for the neighbors.
You can imagine. The thought of ordinary working-class folks using the pool and facilities, it completely shattered their carefully constructed image.
So what happened?
They folded immediately, withdrew the dog covenant on the spot. Keep the dog. Please keep the dog. It just perfectly shows that clash. The Pa focused on independence and practicality versus the UAW obsessed with maintaining social appearances, even at the cost of common sense.
That's a fantastic story. What a great illustration of the different mindsets.
Yeah.
Okay, as we move toward wrapping up, what's the ultimate takeaway here? The core message for everyone listening?
I think the most fundamental truth, the one the data screams from every page, is that people who achieve financial independence are consistently happier, more secure, and less fearful than people in the exact same income and age group who are stuck on the UAW consumption treadmill.
So it's not just about the money, it's about the peace of mind.
It's almost entirely about the peace of mind. It eliminates that constant gnawing fear of losing your job, fear of an unexpected medical bill, fear of an economic downturn. That fear paralyzes UAWs, even high-income ones. Financial independence removes that fear.
And the path there isn't really about striking it rich, quick, or incredible luck.
Not usually. It's far more often the result of consistent hard work, yes, but also perseverance, careful planning, and most importantly, that relentless self-discipline, frugality, playing defense as well as offense.
It sounds achievable if you make the right choices.
It is achievable. It's about being a smart, efficient operator of your own financial life, making sure your income translates into durable compounding assets, not just memories of things you bought and consumed.
Which leads us perfectly into our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on after this discussion. The journey to becoming a Pa, to achieving that financial independence, requires conscious choices and trade-offs every single day. So ask yourself honestly, where are you really allocating your most precious resources, your time, your mental energy, your money? If you find yourself consistently spending significant time and energy shopping for, researching, and acquiring consumption items, the next car, the bigger house, the latest gadgets, the expensive vacation, rather than spending that same energy studying investments, planning your financial future, and tracking your progress,
then you're making a choice.
You are actively choosing consumption today over guaranteed financial freedom tomorrow. The question is, are you willing to make the necessary trade-offs, to reallocate that time, that energy, those consumption dollars towards building lasting wealth and achieving true Pa status?
It's a powerful question, because ultimately, the power to change your trajectory lies entirely in the choices you make starting today.
That's today's breakdown. While this discussion cannot replace the book's full text, it can offer a glimpse into its teachings. Hope you found this discussion helpful, and I look forward to sharing more. Let me know what book next you want to discuss.